one year, some kayakers were going down West Fork Beaver Creek, and they said, well, what have you guys done to improve the water? It looks so much better. And so I started looking at water quality results, and in that same time, I did notice that the water had improved. There was a big high-intensity rain event, and all the other rivers were quite dirty. Beaver Creek looked pretty good. So I went back, looked at the numbers, saw quite a reduction. Contacted the local organizations out that way and asked what they had done for implementation activities. And they had been very aggressive and had contacted a lot of the landowners along the rivers and were able to enroll a great deal of the rivers in buffer strips. They had wide buffer strips along the edge of the river, and it made a huge difference in water quality. So that's probably the starkest example.
I am standing in front of the West Fork of Beaver Creek, which would be one of the biggest success stories for the Hawk Creek Watershed Project and our partners. We have managed to reduce sediment in here greatly over the last decade, and we hope to continue with that on into the future. The Hawk Creek Watershed Project encompasses 621,000 acres and includes not only Hawk Creek, but also Beaver Creek and the tributary of Beaver Creek that we're next to here, which is the West Fork of Beaver Creek.
This particular farm was farmed as close to the floodplain and into the floodplain as possible. The slopes that you see and the ravines coming into here were heavily eroded. There was, hundreds of tons of sediment coming off of these fields and being deposited in Beaver Creek in the 70s and 80s prior to this going into the program in 1996. Into one of our programs, like the Reinvest in Minnesota program, this whole gully extended itself right down to Beaver Creek. And so we had this huge watershed that carried soil and water and whatever else was in it directly off the field and directly into the creek, which deposited a whole tons, literally hundreds of tons of sediment into this creek on an annual basis.
When I first started monitoring water quality, Hawk Creek was one of the first watersheds that I had started monitoring, and conditions were pretty deplorable, a lot of sediment.
Specific numbers to Beaver Creek. About 50% of the West Fork of Beaver Creek is buffered with some sort of a filter strip, and that would be either one side or both sides, and even 40% of it has a buffer on both sides. And when I talk about buffers, it's really the situation that, such as on this property, where we're not talking about a 10, 15, 20-foot buffer, we're talking about the entire floodplain of Beaver Creek and beyond. So when this floods in the springtime, we've got that vegetation and grass in place to catch some of that sediment and slow it down, and it's made a big difference for West Fork of Beaver Creek. Only 6.1% of the watershed is enrolled into grass practices, so it's a relatively small amount, but the point of that is that it's in key areas, directly adjacent to streams and in the floodplain, and then other critical areas that needed the grass as well. And the RIM program has been a big part of that. Of the 7,500 acres that have been retired in the basin, 4,600 of it are into perpetual easements. So they'll have a long lifespan, much longer than a 10-year CRP or 15-year CRP. We've addressed this problem the right way by going long-term. And since the start of the project, we've been conducting water quality monitoring on several streams, including this one. Our sampling site is actually 3/4 of a mile down from here. So we're collecting water out of this stream and testing for water quality. What we've seen since the year 2000 is a 50% reduction in sediment in the West Fork of Beaver Creek and a 25% reduction in total phosphorus in Beaver Creek. On the other hand, there is another side of this story, and that would be the nitrogen concentrations in Beaver Creek. While the sediment and phosphorus have gone down significantly, the nitrates have not followed the same path. There has been a slight general increase in the nitrogen concentrations in Beaver Creek through the past decade. There's some concern about increased tile drainage possibly contributing to that. It's something that we'll have to monitor to see the long-term trend.
It took us about 100 years to do the damage that we've done to the landscape, and it's going to take us probably that long in order to get the fix in that we need to do. The big part of fixing landscapes, heavily agricultural landscapes, is that conservation offices and conservation agencies need the programs and the and the options to be able to offer those farmers.
The Beaver Creek watershed looks bright. The fact that the vast majority of what's been placed out here on the landscape is into a perpetual program means that we're going to realize these benefits long beyond Tom's career or even my career. So.